the end of October, and after months of secret negotiations, the United States quietly signed a deal with Colombia, its staunchest ally in the region and the biggest recipient of military aid in the hemisphere. The agreement grants the United States access to 7 Colombian military bases for 10 years. Uribe and the Obama administration have said that the deal is a mere extension of the U.S. war on drugs, known here as Plan Colombia. But as Hugo Chavez declared that he was preparing for war and tensions rose in the Colombia-Venezuela border, fault lines decided to investigate why access to bases like this one have caused so much concern. 250 kilometers outside of the Colombian capital, Bogota, and we're on a Black Hawk helicopter flying with Colombian Special Forces. We're being dropped right into the front line of Colombia's civil war, in the heart of the jungle. Greeted by the Omega Joint Task Force and shown around the scene of the Colombian military's latest battle with FARC guerrillas. We're in a guerrilla camp that the military attacked very recently, and they're giving us a tour of the camp after the bombardment. We have asked repeatedly the Ministry of Defense to show us the bases in Colombia that the U.S. will have access to under the New Deal, but they insisted that we come and see this first. 2 days ago, the Army Special Forces bombed this FARC camp, and we can see the crater left by one of the bombs. We can still smell the explosives in the air. They told us that at least 6 bombs fell here in this area. He's going to show us what he says these holes are for. He says the guerrilla fighters hide in these holes when they hear the Black Hawks approach. But on this occasion, shallow foxholes weren't enough. According to the Colombian government, they killed 7 FARC fighters here. The rest, 50 or 60, both men and women, fled, leaving behind what they couldn't carry. The helicopters, guns, bombs, intelligence-gathering equipment, and military advisors that drove this operation have been, in part, financed by U.S. taxpayers. Over the past decade, Colombia has received almost $7 billion in assistance from the U.S. Back at the base, from where the Special Forces operations are planned in secret, General Jaime Lasprilla says that the military aid and support has made a big difference. Sí.
We have received, since many years ago, really tremendous support from the United States government, consisting in technology, training, and advice in many fields, particularly in Omega Joint Task Force theater of operation. We have received during the last 5 years very important support.
Negotiated under the Clinton administration, Plan Colombia was supposed to be a way of channeling U.S. resources into the war on drugs, while keeping the United States out of Colombia's civil conflict. But since 9/11, the Uribe government has reframed efforts to eradicate the FARC as a war against narco-terrorists, requiring Washington's support.
The FARC joined with the drugs, and then they became narco-terrorists because they handle all the process of the drug.
In the future, do you think there's going to be more presence?
The threat in Colombia has been changed in keeping the U.S. support. We will reach the final objective, which is to conquer the peace in Colombia.
Peace in Colombia, but at what cost? General Lasprilla says the Colombian army is winning the war. The FARC were once numbered 17,000 strong, but now there are only 8,000 left. President Barack Obama's new defense cooperation agreement with Colombia is expected to further tip the war in the Colombian government's favor. As we prepare to leave the camp, the Special Forces troops torch all the remaining evidence that the FARC fighters were ever here. The flames here will soon die down, but the pain of Colombia's conflict still burns strong for many people in this country. In the Bogota suburb of Soacha, Blancanuvia Monroy pays her respects at the grave of her son, Julian, who died almost 2 years ago at the age of 19. He was targeted and killed by soldiers in the Colombian military. He was neither a drug trafficker nor a guerrilla.
A él le pegaron 6 impactos. Uno de esos impactos fue el impacto mortal, que tengo entendido, entró, pasó el corazón, destrozó el pulmón y él murió desangrado.
Julian's body was one of 11 found in Ocaña, halfway across the country. Incentives to hike the body count in the war with the FARC were so strong that some military units, often using recruiters as intermediaries, enticed civilians with fake jobs or told them they were being recruited into the army. Then they executed them, dressed their bodies in enemy uniform, and presented them as false evidence of positive guerrilla kills. It's become known as the false positive scandal, and it's believed that over 2,000 men, many from poor neighborhoods like Soacha, were killed this way.
Pues los muchachos necesitando su trabajo, pues ellos se iban a trabajar, sin saber que ellos iban a ir como unos corderitos a la muerte.
When the scandal was exposed, President Uribe sacked a number of military men, including 3 generals. But since the cases have become public, families of the false positives victims say they have been threatened by paramilitaries. For Blanca, the killings raise doubts about the nature of the war the U.S. is supporting here.
Tengo entendido que Estados Unidos le da a Colombia una cantidad de plata para esto. Entonces yo pienso que no es justo que esta plata la cojan de pronto para otras cosas y tengan que ir a coger personas inocentes para presentarlas como un falso positivo. Entonces, eso es algo vergonzoso y triste.
It's Saturday morning, and Colombia's cabinet is up in the air. Every Saturday, President Uribe and his cabinet go to different parts of Colombia to speak to local people. This Saturday, because of rising tensions with Venezuela, he's taking all cabinet members to the border in Cúcuta, and we've got rare access to fly with them on the plane, and we're on our way. Venezuela's president, Hugo Chavez, has told his army to prepare for war. A rash of assassinations have been committed inside the Venezuela border, 2 border bridges have been blown up, and trade between the countries fell by 70% in a month. With all the fighting talk, Uribe seems to have decided that it's time to de-escalate.
Defensor, ministro, ¿cuál es la disminución en estos 4 días de reparación de esas plantas de gas del suministro a Venezuela y a Ecuador?
Venezuela está 0 y Ecuador le estamos exportando de 4 gigavatios, estamos en 1,5.
¿En serio? Pero eso también se reconstituye.
The Colombian president starts the day by grilling his cabinet.